Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the COMIT Virtual Happy Hour. Thank you very much for joining us today. This is the place for a friendly chat about a hot topic over a beer, a beverage, or whatever you fancy. Okay, so a little bit about COMIT. Those that are new to COMIT, COMIT is a community made up of owners, contractors, solution providers, manufacturers, and academics. COMIT has a history of developing projects, events, including webinars, with a focus on increasing productivity for better outcomes. By being collaborative with all of the stakeholders, we create value and enablement through process improvement, and by setting up and delivering demonstration projects. The long-term aim is to reduce capital project costs by up to 30% and a reduction in cycle times. So, on to today's session. What has building things right ever done for us? And this is a look at the need to ensure accuracy throughout the building creation process from the point of view of the different stakeholders involved. I'm now going to introduce you to the team. Welcome to the team. We have Adam behind the scenes, we've got Neil, we've got Robert, we've got Ben, and we've got Andrew. So, Ben Raybould of Turner Townsend is opening the session with an outline of the increasing client requirements and the contractual and legislative changes that are impacting on the building sector. We have Adam Box of Topcon Technologies. He will introduce why he became so passionate about construction verification and provide an example of modern day tools that help improve the on-site processes. And bringing a practical real-world application is Robert Klaschka of Evr-Bilt, who will cover some of the requirements to carry out accurate and effective on-site activities. We've got Neil Donaghy from Skanska, who will talk about their focus on the people side of the equation to assist technology adoption and maximise the benefits it can provide. And then finally, we'll hear from Andy Evans. Andy's president of the construction industry, civil engineering surveyors, and is a senior product manager at Digital Construction Works. Andy will talk about the activities of his profession to uplift and support the adoption and utilisation of technology. Over to you, Adam.
Are you going to give me the screen grab?
All yours.
Cool. Okay. Do let me know if it pops up.
Yeah, that's good, Adam.
Yeah.
There we are.
Cool. Super duper. Right, Ben, over to you. I shall perform the dutiful next slide role, hopefully with huge success.
Okay, thanks Adam, and also thanks Stuart. I guess first and foremost, on behalf of myself and the other panelists, just a thanks for the opportunity to come and talk today about something that we're very passionate about as a group of individuals. And before I sort of went into the client conversation part, I wanted to just talk about why the people on the panel today are together, and it isn't by chance. In actual fact, the panel and myself have been meeting since 2020 as a very passionate group of individuals talking about construction verification, something that we believe has a major role to play in the very question that we're talking about today. What has building things right ever done for us? We think that fundamentally is the right way to construct projects first time and getting things right first time. We also recognise the reality that we construct things and there are issues in terms of the construction process, and there are many other factors that need to be considered during the build and construction process itself, and that's something that we've been speaking about, as I say, since 2020. We have some great representation from the industry, some great thinkers and very passionate people, and we meet every single month and talk about this topic, and every quarter try and get ourselves together to focus on some of our objectives and how we'll deliver on those. Next slide, please, Adam. So one of the sort of statements that we came up with and we've been sort of presenting to the wider industry around verification and the idea of construction verification is this here, and I'll just read this to you. So verification is one of the core components in increasing digitalisation of construction sites. The process drives advancement in project performance by recognising and mitigating potential costs and risks while improving productivity, quality and safety. The verification group aims to advocate for the support of the necessary cultural change and learning necessary to realise the full potential of these technologies and processes in the built environment and ensure they become business as usual. So just sort of drawing upon that statement and what we believe as a group and what we've been speaking about, we definitely recognise the opportunity for verification to support getting things right. There's a conversation here around, is verification a reactive piece of work? We actually think there's a lot of proactiveness in verification, in the fact that you may be scanning some works and you may identify onward issues that perhaps wouldn't have been identified otherwise. So there's a really good opportunity to mitigate those issues from occurring, or future issues occurring. The other thing I want to just draw upon there is the sort of the fact that we see this as becoming business as usual. And I think this probably leads me on quite nicely to the next slide, if that's okay, Adam. So some of the objectives that we've set ourselves as a group, and we've sort of agreed upon these over the last few years, we think we've got something to add to the industry. We're not doing this for commercial reasons. We're not doing this for our own organisations. We're actually doing this because we believe there's an opportunity to change the industry. I think the industry is already changing itself, and we're seeing verification and delivering construction projects more accurately, a productivity gain, and actually tier one contractors, clients and everybody involved in the supply chain values and recognises that. But for us to really make a difference, we came up with these 4 objectives that you can see on the page. So we've got define verification. So as a group, we want to understand and actually define what verification is. And I'll be honest, if we had that conversation today, we probably wouldn't land on the agreed statement for this, something that we've debated long and hard over one of our last sort of face-to-face sessions. Define the industry standard scopes of verification. So when we talk about verification, and from my perspective, coming from a digital consultant that sits at the early stages of the client's spectrum, how do we define what verification is in terms of a scope? Is it the client that looks to define that, or is it the contractor? And if we do, how do we procure it? Identify and propose suggested workflows of verification. This is quite important. There are lots of technologies that we're seeing out there in the market, platforms which have more whole service sort of embedded within them, or we have more sort of progressive technology, capturing methodologies, etc., that may be a little bit more hybrid. So we want to start to look at, okay, what do we know works? How have we done it before, and how do we bring that to the industry? And then finally, support verification becoming business as usual. As I said before, we're seeing this happen itself, but we believe we've got a role to play in that in terms of supporting these objectives. Next slide, please, Adam. Which brings me on to the client conversation, and I really wanted to sort of talk about a little bit more. So I've used some keywords on the page here. So productivity, sustainability, digitalisation and legislation, with a question at the end, rhetorical, but perhaps we can discuss it at the end. In terms of productivity, I'm going to sound like a broken record for the industry here, but the projects that we're working on are becoming more complex, are becoming more lean, where clients are expecting projects to be more productive, our workforces to be more productive. And as a result, there's an expectation that we need to improve the way we construct. There's an absolute interlink here, and actually sustainability should probably be a wrapper rather than its own key point. There's an absolute interlink in terms of sustainability having value in terms of what that can bring to the equation. So we see, productivity gains in that. Why don't we get it right first time? How can we build things properly? How can we reduce the carbon footprint? Do we need as many materials on site? How can we sort of improve the way we construct, so we don't make the same mistakes, or we can learn from the issues that we've come up against? So productivity is a really key factor that we need to think about. It sort of interlinks as well back into digitalisation. So we're seeing enhanced data or more data being used for the construction process or the build process. So like the opportunity to capture progressive information can also help us with programmatic reviewing. It can also help us with cost management. So we've got the opportunity to do valuations. We can manage change control better. I actually say one of my biggest use cases I see for verification is actual change control. Fundamentally, we're sitting in a construction project, we're still sat with a design model and not an as-built model. But when significant change occurs through the middle of the project, we don't have the right information to hand, and therefore the opportunity to utilize verified information from point cloud scanning is very valuable for that process. Lots of use cases sit around operations, and we do see clients seeking better information handed over at operation stage, which lands itself or falls itself into legislation and some of the changes that we've seen the industry make recently in terms of needing better information handed over at the end of the project. It's quite rare that we see the best quality information handed at the end of the project that can be used for operations, but actually take that concept and turn it into very well organized photography or very well organized progressive information capture, and it starts to become a bit easier to understand and manage. So I think those are really key pillars that we need to think about when we're talking about these things. And I guess the final thing for me is to ponder this question around client demand and some of the specific requirements. One of the questions we ask ourselves quite a lot when we meet and we have a chat about this is, who should specify the need for building things properly? Does a client have a responsibility in their employer's requirements, or if we go into the sort of the ISO 19650 world, their information requirements, to specify that something is built correctly, or they have at least demonstrate or identify a need for a process to be shown by the contractor in their supply chain? Or is it the case that actually the client shouldn't ask for those things, and we should expect to see our tier ones and supply chains and general contractors providing these services to produce better quality information, and we should expect it? So I think there's a good old debate there that we've been having for a while, and one that will continue, no doubt, further down the line. So yeah, I think in summary, I'm seeing lots of industry reasons in the industry to make building things properly happen. Where Turner & Townsend, we support clients at the front end. We are being asked by clients to think of ways we can bring tooling, better digital tools to the process, better connected ecosystems. How can we improve, enhance the way we deliver projects? And finally, there's a big old piece around the contract procurement types and what are the contracts that are being used. There's definitely a debate that this would look different in a CM world compared to a D&B world. And it's something, again, interesting to ponder and think about how we move this forward. Over to you, Adam, if that's okay.
Perfect. I love the timer going off as well. That was excellent. Fantastic. Right. Thank you, Ben. Really useful to see that side of the equation. What I was hoping to talk about was almost my journey into this space and why I care about it. And as Ben said, both on a personal level and on a group level, we're not necessarily looking for just the whole commercial side, but one of the things that for me changed my whole view on everything was actually a single product. I've always been very passionate about things that actually do what they're trying to do. My whole career has been orientated around very single issues that have been resolved by technology that I feel can make a huge difference to the world around us. And for me, strangely, this product will probably sit in my career life as being pretty fundamental to quite a significant change and a real growth in passion to be able to say, actually, do you know what, we can make a difference. There is a solution to really help deal with this very difficult problem of validating where something is actually being installed. So if you allow me, I will briefly tell you why I think it's such a useful product, and you hopefully pick up some of the passion that I've got for it. So my journey into this verification was through encountering the Verity product that lived inside Navisworks, and I was already comfortable in that particular world. And I know a lot of contractors are traditionally using that product to coordinate the job that they're working on. And what it did was something that's remarkably simple, but also incredibly powerful, which is to compare the design model to 3D laser scan data and allow you to establish the deviations that occurs. And it does it in a way that I thought was truly unique, because what it does is to create a separate instance of the object and fit that to the point cloud, which means that as a byproduct of the product working, it actually gives you an as-built model. And as Ben mentioned, the most powerful aspect of knowing if something is not in the right place is to discover what does that now affect with the rest of the build. And the ability that we provide, or that Verity provides, to create that as-built model means that those site teams can actually then run clash detection based upon these new elements being in different locations and discover what are the challenges that are coming because something that should have been in one location isn't and is somewhere else. So it's a really, really powerful product. I'm not necessarily here just to promote this, but for me, it was such an insightful moment in realizing that not only could we had to resolve the construction verification piece, but we had a technology that could do it. Most people will know that Verity was developed by a smaller software company in America called ClearEdge, and that was bought by Topcon, which I now work for. You can probably tell because I've got a shirt on, and I'll talk about why that actually happened as well and what they did to improve this general process. And I'm always a fan, and my last little statement said, it actually works. I always like software that actually delivers on what it is. But here's a couple of examples of what it will show you. So you can see here very clearly that this round ducting is obviously in a very different place. The picture on the left showing its true location shows very clearly the intersection it now has with that orange ductwork. So it's a really nice visual way of being able to understand what on earth is going on. Yes, you need to be doing laser scanning, but actually here's a solution that will make sense of that in a quick and understandable manner. And one of the ways that I particularly like is its ability to recolor the Navisworks model according to the deviation that's occurred. Now, unfortunately, in this example, I do need to tell you that if an object has been recolored yellow, it's in the wrong place according to the tolerance. But they got two green ones, so they got two that are more or less in the right place according to tolerance, so they're pretty well. But it does have a really nice way in which it both carries out the task that it's doing and then allows you to interrogate them really quickly. I mentioned that ClearEdge had been bought by Topcon, and it becomes really obvious why when you look at how they saw Verity fitting into the workflow. How were they looking at resolving this problem of what do we do to give people building these buildings the tools to do it as effective as possible? I'm not going to cover this in any great detail, but what they effectively did was to create an instrument that allowed the site engineer to collect scans as he went by using typical robotic total station resection, so you knew they were on grid or in location. They developed in the middle a tablet-based driving mechanism for the instrument, so that made it super easy to use. It's very much like a mobile phone application, big buttons, really straightforward, and obviously it feeds through into Verity to speed that all up. So that's my little pitch on that, and that's why I get excited about construction verification, because I know I can do something about it, and that's why I've been really enjoying the passion of my colleagues in bringing this all forward within the construction verification group. As you could say, as Ben said as well, it was the fact that we are looking to try and improve the way things are working within the construction space and just build buildings properly, helping people recognize the tools that are there to help this go on. And the CVI at the moment is an excellent vehicle for doing that. We will continue to encourage anybody to come and join in on what we're doing and help out and try and ultimately deliver on what we want for the industry in general. And that's me. Thank you very much for listening. I'm now going to hand over to Robert Klaschka. Are you there, Robert?
Hi, Adam. Thanks for that. Okay. So I am going to talk about some of the practical considerations of construction verification. This is the spoiler alert, I'm afraid. I'm the party pooper. I'm going to run through three things today. I could talk about much more because there's loads to talk about verification, but today I'm going to stick on the three core types of verification, why we do it, and what it's being used for at the moment. Then I'm going to talk about accuracy and verification. That really will be a party pooper type moment, especially for people selling hardware. Sorry, Adam. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about cost, value, time, and risk, and that is in relation to these three core types. So next slide, please, Adam. So there are three core types that we've identified in the group of verification, and each of them has different characteristics. One of which we've already obviously talked about laser scanning quite a lot because Adam's been talking about Verity, but progress monitoring, which is probably the easiest. It's an easy entry point because it requires less infrastructure on site, perhaps not as little as sometimes people have anyway, but it can use photography or laser scan data. Primarily what it's about is working out at a particular point in time whether something's there or not, and obviously in the grand scheme of things, if you've got a model that has been 4D'd, so you've planned the time of the project, then you can compare what's actually happening to what you were hoping had happened. One of the benefits of it is that it has a lower requirement of accuracy, and this is primarily because it's about working out whether something's there or not, rather than whether it's in the right place. So that makes it quite an attractive entry point. The other characteristic of it is that it requires frequent data capture, because obviously if you want to understand how quickly this project is progressing, then you need increments of data capture which relate to that. Next slide, please. The interesting thing about this one, accuracy in as-built models, I think this is really the reason that construction verification first came on a lot of people's radars. And the reason for this was that clients were starting to realize that their as-built models were a bit inaccurate. I mean, you know, they were the design models that had just been reissued, and they didn't necessarily reflect what had happened on site. You can see in the image here, it's a good example where the ductwork to the northeast of this image, one piece of ductwork runs around the top of the room and one runs around the bottom of the room, not where the model is shown at all. And then also you can see that the whatever it is, some sort of mechanical plant is not quite in the location that it was expected. This is it's reliant on laser scanning, but one of the cheaper things about it, one of the lower cost elements of it, is that it effectively tends to be done across the whole project, one or maybe two times near the end of the project. So it's a bit like scanning a building once or twice, rather than this more incremental process that the other two types have. So that's accuracy in as-built models, and obviously the key to it is knowing what is where. You can then go back to your subcontractors or your designers and ask them to update their as-built models where necessary. Next slide, please. So accuracy during construction. This is the big one. So effectively compares models with laser scan data. The purpose of it is to establish whether things have been built where they were meant to be built. Here in this image that you can see, we're looking at a wall layout. Yellow stuff is out of tolerance, green stuff in tolerance, red stuff not there. Yeah, so you can see with this, in order to meaningfully capture data to support this the accuracy during construction, you need smaller increments of data. You're capturing around a project in the location that work is actually going on, or the work that you want to verify is going on, and it requires high accuracy scanning, which is difficult. There's no question of that. The benefits of this, you can find where things have been installed incorrectly, and some pieces of software will even move elements into the locations that they're found in the point cloud, and that then allows you to run clash detections with follow-on packages. And this sort of effectively, this is facilitating things like later on in a project where a package has been built but been built in the wrong place, and then something else comes on site, and maybe some prefabricated services, and they don't fit because what came before was in the wrong place. With this type of verification, you discover that much earlier, in theory, very shortly after an installation has happened or during installation when the subcontractor is still on site and fix it. So we'll now move on to how you get accuracy in construction. So this is probably all you need to know, isn't it? I mean, mid-range scanner, the Faro Focus, the Topcon GTL 1200, Leica, I can't remember what it's called, RCC 360. All broadly speaking, accurate to 1 to 2 millimeters at 10 meters with one scan. So we can verify incredibly accurately, can't we? Well, next slide, please. The answer is no. So here's 400 scans. The different colors here represent individual scans, and you can see this is about 400 scans that have been put together. And if you've got a really nice, a really good registration for something as big as this, 150 to 100 square meter by 100 square meters, you've got a reasonable chance of plus or minus 10 millimeters. So that's really good. That's a really good solid registration, nice dense placement of scans. It's a lot of capture, but that is literally as good as it's going to get. So next slide, please. Obviously, we also need to place these scans in the same coordinate system as the model. How do we do that? Now, obviously, we're going to, this is where we need a more accurate instrument, total station in this, where we've effectively sort of either traversed around a building, and we've taken, here I'm showing 4 stations, which we've effectively fixed this scan data to. A controlled traverse like this, a really bulletproof one, one that's been done with a high quality instrument, a 1 second or a 2 second instrument, there's a reasonable chance you're going to get RICS band A plus or minus 4 millimeters for this. But obviously, look in the middle of this. How do we know that the scan data right in the middle of this plan is actually correct? How accurate it is? So next slide, please. So in reality, what we do is we put a lot more checkpoints into a project than the points that we actually swing the data onto, so that we've got it in the same place as the project. And this allows, for example, I'm showing these various blue spots around the place that are near targets. This allows us to establish much more clearly that the data is as accurate as we think it is, the plus or minus 10 millimeters that we're hoping for in most locations across the project. Obviously, you can never say that everywhere is going to be accurate. There might be a mistake in the registration that you hadn't spotted. You certainly can't trust the numbers that come out of the scan registration software, but this is the best that it gets. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, effectively, in a best case scenario, we're talking about laser scan data that's plus or minus 10 millimeters. Can I have the next slide, please? So obviously, with verification, yeah, we're looking at scanning areas of the site incrementally as work takes place. So here, maybe there's new services going into these across this. This is an emergency department building that I'm working on at the moment. And maybe these areas have got new services going into them, so we're checking them. The critical thing, and you'll hear this on a regular basis, people talk about very high accuracy verification. Remember what I said, the best we're going to get our laser scan data across this site is plus or minus 10 millimeters to the true position. And so if you're trying to verify against that, well, you certainly can't verify to 5 millimeters, as I've heard some people say. I would suggest, in fact, that the best positional verification you're likely to be able to achieve is plus or minus 25 millimeters or 25 millimeters from position. And the reason that I say that is that if we're saying that this point cloud could be 10 meters wrong, then anything that we're measuring it against, yeah, it needs to build that error into it. So anything even close to 10 millimeters is, you're suggesting that the error that you might find could be in the point cloud, not in the services. So next slide, please. Nearly at the end. And then, of course, the other question is when we talk about these very high, when people aspire to these very high levels of verification, 5 millimeters, 10 millimeters, is there any way of actually enforcing them? Here we've got a diagram from the BS on expectations about deviation from straightness of walls, and you can see we're talking about 15 millimeters deviation is what the BS is expecting. So before you start thinking about what level you're going to try to verify at, just ask yourself, is it reasonable that are you asking for something that's greater than normal construction tolerances? And if you are asking about something greater than that, why? Do you actually need it? Next slide, please. Last slide, in fact. So I'm going to finish on this slide, which is primarily looking at just comparing the different types of verification. And I know for a fact that, there's a real attraction at the moment in the project management community to progress monitoring. It's obvious why that is. Yeah, relatively speaking, it's a lower cost. Progress is good for valuations. Progress is good for monitoring the site moving forwards, and it's not the highest cost thing. Obviously, there's a high frequency required, and the risk that it helps you mitigate is moderate. Knowing quickly that a project isn't going according to plan is very valuable. Obviously, as-built accuracy, pretty low cost, low frequency, relatively low risk. As-built stuff is, it's not it's unusual for something inaccurate as-built model to cause real problems. And then we've got 3 red spots for accuracy during construction. It's high cost because you need to accurate data collection on site. It's high frequency in order to make it meaningful. I would argue that the value is high, and the reason for that is that the risk through the sorts of delays and costs that can come from big coordination problems in a project can be very severe. We always say in the construction verification initiative that if you find one big issue on a project, and there are on most projects, then it's paid for itself. And that's it for me. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Rob. Here's Neil next. Are you there, Neil? There he is.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you very much indeed. Good afternoon, everybody. Right, let's move on to really what the others have been talking about, especially what we just heard about the actual type of technology out on site, and how do we actually get it out there and the adoption and to maximise the benefits. It's not easy, and basically I'm just going to take you through some sort of processes and some ideas around that might help you to sort of bring this to fruition. So next slide, please. Right, so I'm just going to briefly ask you to read the following quotes, and first one really, it's about technology driving change, and it's plain and simple. It's happening, and we've obviously got to move on, and we've got to direct that change as we sort of move through the business processes within the construction industry. But the second one, look who's written this. It's John F. Kennedy. So it's been around a hell of a long time, and but it's about being a visionary, and obviously don't just look to next week's solution or what happened, but to look forward 12, 18 to 24 months time where you want to be, and actually what we should be doing as a business as usual approach. So but it's about how do you actually get now you, me, and everyone around us now to actually adopt. So just going to try and generate a few sort of changes in terms of approach to this and how you can actually drive sort of solutions into your industry. into the construction industry or into your business. Next slide, please. So first of all, it's about where we are as a business, or where we were, and it was about building a business proposal, build a plan to actually introduce what was out there, looking at the technologies and how they could make us change. I mean, you've already heard the GTL 1200 being mentioned. Look how, you know, we're going back a couple of years, good few 3 years now, 4 years around when the GTL 1000 was about. So we've now sort of where we were and how we've moved forward. It's taken a massive change. But it's really important to actually build case studies, to actually build the actual business proposal for your leadership teams. Really important to actually gather your lessons learned. But, you know, you've got to go back and look at some painful exercises, what may have happened, and look at, you know, what's around us in terms of quality and productivity within the wider industry. How can we change the challenges there? Because we're known as a low productive industry, so we've got to draw on some of the metrics out there where we can help sort of harness a case for pushing this forward, and also to draw on others around us. Luckily enough, within the business, we've got internal partners, and they've got some really good examples about what we can do and how we can actually bring this through to vertical construction. But also draw on us, you know, the external parties around us as well. We can help and support and sort of drive sort of ideas into sort of promotion in terms of where they should go. But it's really important that the evidence here is to support the benefits, what you're doing. You know, we're a commercial business. We need to understand what the outlay is going to be to recoup the benefit. But it's not just about cost, it's about the actual, you know, the time factors and things like that in terms of other workflows that you could sort of support in terms of process and automation. It's really important you actually focus on this because it helps deliver a message and it helps deliver change. The productivity drivers here, you've heard before, you know, from Adam, is just, you know, where we are, what you can do differently, and how you can actually move your quality control and compliance checks forward, for example. It speaks for itself. It's actually about building right first time. Next slide, please. So, how do we actually take this forward, really? So basically, let's look at a plan on a page. Once we've actually got through the tackles of a business proposal to your leadership team, it's really quite interesting now that you actually start to look at this, because I've mentioned before, we've looked at the opening quotes, and it's about the people now coming together and how you can actually bring this journey and take it forward. And it's not overnight. There is a long-term objective, but I will stress, keep it simple. And if we keep it simple, you can start to land these really good sort of adoption techniques. So look at this plan on the page, for example. Here we've got you're looking at what you need to associate it with. Why are you doing it? Well, we know why on the call, but we're obviously trying to align it to a business strategic objective, a business goal, for example, and make sure that it's got some sounding sort of baseline that you're actually going to build off this. It's going to really help drive the business forwards. So we're going to looking at what it is, and we have to then build a series of obviously clarifications on what we're doing in terms of assumptions, the risk factors, the opportunities and the constraints and the assumptions. We have to build that, but make it clear and concise so we can actually then just build this plan of how we're actually going to deliver this technique of working and how we're going to adopt and make people change. It's really important that we actually do this planning session because it's not the most interesting, it's not the technology here, but it's the detail that you actually do need to actually bottom out and understand so everybody knows what they're doing. So when you look at the who factor here, it's really important, as I've mentioned before, to get the sponsorship. You need the leadership around you, and you need a team around you to actually put a stake in the ground and say, right, we're going to back this, and this is what we're going to do as a business. Identify your roles and your responsibilities for individuals on the delivery of this, and also your end game. Really look at your customers at the end of this and your stakeholders along the way. Make sure you document this so you can actually take people on the journey, actually delivering this objective. As I said, we started this a long time ago, and it's still ongoing, and we're in various phases of this. So it's a journey we'll keep moving forwards. Now, the exciting stuff now is about the how and when, the project goals, what we're going to do, the actions, the governance, the management, and the communications aspect and reporting and reviewing of all this. It's really important you have a structure of what you're going to do. Do not overthink this, and I would suggest just keep it simple. If you keep it simple, you have an opportunity of making it work. So if we go on to the next slide, please, Adam. So just to draw on some of the items just covered there, really is about the influences, what we can do, and potentially where we can really sort of drive into those sort of plans that I've just mentioned. But I will keep reiterating a couple of things along the way. But if we just go to the people and communication piece, it's just about, I will really stress here, if we keep it simple, it avoids confusion. And so the less is more. In fact, and I've found it takes the adoption piece a lot along the way a lot faster, but also it lessens the confusion amongst the team and obviously the others around us. But also we've got a really important piece here, and it's about empowering people with the tools and the tech around us, making sure we can deliver the tools to them. Let's take them on a journey and let's get them out there. Let's get them doing the actual scanning, and let's get them out there learning new techniques. It's really important that we take people on that journey. Helps them develop as individuals as well. The change management piece, it's a large piece of work. Let's look at this. Let's keep it where it is. It's a whole change management process to what we usually do, and it's about understanding that, how we can take others to consider that as well. The benefits, again, we've got to make sure that we look at the efficiencies here. The connecting of workflows is critical. What we can do to actually shorten sort of process and quality checks, for example, and make sure we can drive solutions earlier if there's a challenge on site. Really important as well to make sure we case study and evidence this, and also the investment, what we're doing to actually offset the actual outlay at the commitment at the very beginning. Now, as you move forward, you need to sort of look at providing a framework to make this sort of all prop up, and it's a business as usual approach. If that's what you want to do day in, day out as a business, you've got to then leverage some sort of governance and make sure you influence your working processes to make sure it happens. You don't just do this every so often. It needs to be driven into the business to actually make it stand up. Really important, and obviously it's something we need to sort of build on all the time. Resources and commercial, understand that, and also look at the probably factoring this into people's personal development goals. It's really important then they've got something to anchor against and to move forward with. Building the team, obviously it's a slow start at the beginning, but objectively you're looking to build a team to actually drive a change within your business. But it's about making sure that you can involve the wider business and external parties along the way to help you do that, but also to look at the training, development, communication. And I just want to draw one thing at the very end here, is the communication is key and how we can actually keep this moving forwards. And if you go to the next slide, please. It's about making sure once you've got your business moving forward in this direction, how do you actually continuously knowledge share? Really, it's about driving events such as internal events, bringing people together, making sure they're actually taking back to the projects examples, where they can make a change to their project, making sure that they can actually communicate what's the benefits. It's actually spreading the word, and it's really important to engage and influence that message as well. So it's driving that throughout the business. Also, develop your intranet sites, provide a pathway to inform people about what this is about, and obviously build on the technology which you've seen earlier examples of. But also the training is a really key piece here, where I'm going to segue in now to the next section. But the training here is about aligning to industry as well, and making sure you build a process there where people in the business can actually move forward with in their careers, basically. That's it for me. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Neil. Fabulous. So, Mr. Evans.
Good afternoon, everyone. My internet's being a little bit glitchy, but let's make a start. So I'm here with my Chartered Institution of Civil Engineering Surveyors hat on, and sort of picking up on Neil's piece about aligning industry, training, communication and collaboration. I think what's key is, and this is a preface to this slide, what's key is about enabling that communication of the idea of what we've been talking about here this afternoon, how that aligns to various pieces of industry. So there's a, within this CICES, just within that group, there's geospatial engineers and commercial managers. And there's use of construction verification in both those pieces. But it's the responsibility of the institutions to drive that adoption of standards, influence the creation of standards as appropriate, and listen to the pockets of expertise, such as that displayed by Skanska here or by Turner Townsend, and then pulling that in and making that available to the wider audiences, spreading that information out there. So in terms of where I sit with this and where it sits within the institution, we're talking, Rob mentioned construction progress tracking earlier. And I interchange the use of construction progress tracking and construction verification regularly, and that's bad of me. That's something that needs to be standardized. But the most important part is, where I see it fitting is linking that useful information derived from construction verification to the project plan. That ties nicely with the link between the geospatial engineers, who are typically the guys that are collecting that data, linking it and pushing it through to the office and the project planning team. And what Adam's demonstrated with that speed of data collection and verification is as a rapid approach to getting site conditions in a visual form that can go to the project planning team and be interpreted correctly, rather than relying on one specific expert in the field who's there with a spreadsheet of deltas saying, yeah, everything's good, let's carry on. What needs to happen with that is it needs to be easy to do. And I think if you haven't explored construction verification, the technology displayed here is easy to use, not too easy to use, and it considers the requirements needed to put things in the right place that, again, Rob was hinting at. How do we actually get it? What does it mean? How easy is it to use? What are the pitfalls? What do we need to understand? That's all stuff that as an institution we are understanding, communicating, explaining, and responsible for sharing that information to a wider audience, including those that are just consumers of the data that is created using this. And hopefully influencing and making the policy of construction verification mean something that is driven top down as a mandate. So we've talked today about, where does it fit within contracts? How do we make it something that it's obvious to us as members of Construction Verification Initiative that this is something that should happen every day or at every key point in a construction process, but it's not clear on every site. And that's where the champions that Neil was talking about come in to explain why it should happen, how it is actually easier than people think it is. And it's key there. And also hitting on this element of linking construction progress tracking and construction verification, which I'll get onto in the next slide in a moment, is that we need to focus on tracking and checking rather than hyper-accurate positioning sometimes, and trade off those valid decisions in a rapid data-supported timeframe. What I mean by that is there's more value to be gained by getting the job done quickly and getting the job done with accuracy, and there's trade-offs there, and hopefully I can explain that in the next slide. So next slide, please, Adam. Thank you. We're just going to step back in time a minute here as well, because it's clear that this may be, for those listening for the first time, they may think, well, this is new technology here. What's going on? It's not new. Survey in general, even without scanning, has been doing construction verification. That's what your as-built is about. That's what the setting out engineers are responsible for. The difference and what's changed is the ability to share that information easily to more project shareholders quickly and more efficiently. Back in 2017, we were talking about using scanning and some form of verification to link up laser scanners, layout, pull in the use of total stations, both things on site. Back then, technically, it was quite an expensive process to do, but the application was there, and you can see the screenshot on the right here with the guy working, not polishing his concrete floor, but grinding the concrete floor ready to get the levels in there. Back in 2017, we were showing how easy it was to connect everything up, to create that workflow, to enable a fast feedback loop from site to office. And that's the key to this, is that potentially there's good, accurate, as constructed data that can be fed back to the office quickly and easily. How do we qualify that data? How is it standardized? How do we ensure that it works throughout projects? How can we make sure that it's adopted throughout the projects there? And that's, again, then where it comes into getting those pockets of expertise that I've mentioned earlier, spreading that information from those guys wider throughout the industry for the benefit of everybody that's in the construction industry in terms of saving time, increasing productivity, saving money and decreasing waste. It's all the benefits of working with construction verification. Next slide, please. So it's been hinted again, so just sort of reiterating on where we sit. So the thing that I'm keen on promoting and discussing and talking about is still linked to this construction progress tracking, where in this particular graph here, we're talking about simple, assisted and detailed approaches during the construction process and understanding when to engage. Now, that's the purpose of the institution, is to enable those people running projects to, if they don't know already, to have that advice on where should construction verification and construction progress tracking be used. Obviously, construction progress tracking should be used throughout the project, but at what level of detail? What do we need at each stage? So technically, when I talk about a simple construction progress tracking technology, we're talking about images, georeferenced images preferably, but perhaps not necessarily geometrically correct. But there's a good update of process and information there. And what we'll see is that the detailed, assisted and simple will get closer and closer together as technology improves over time. But right now, simple would be someone walking around with a 360 camera gathering that information. What are the implications of that? What do you need to understand? What can the institution give you as guidance for practitioners about what they should be talking about, what they should be promising, what they should be specifying, what they can achieve and what levels. So as Rob was mentioning with the RICS banding for accuracy on topo and topographic information, how do we define that? And that again is the role of the institutions to work with that. With that assisted layer on this particular graph, I'm talking about georeferenced, repeatable imagery or low fast quality scan data. And then with the detailed thing there, we're talking about scanning based verification that Adam was showing and Rob was talking about achieving there. Key for me is that it's throughout all these phases of the construction site progress and site initialization through to construction operations, site finalization. At every one time, there is a need for this type of data, and the fact that it can be done quickly and easily is something that shouldn't be missed by the industry moving forward. So to summarize, from an institution point of view, we're looking at spreading the word. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my phone to stop flashing at me. Spreading the word, helping to standardize on what's achievable, what's possible, and making sure expectations are managed at all levels throughout the construction industry. I think that's me. Next slide.
Yep, and the final slide is just a rallying call from us that if you are interested in getting involved with the institute and the CVI, then please do reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to help. Back to you, I think, Stuart, for the panel questions and the review of the registration queries.
Okie dokie. Can everybody see my screen?
Not yet.
There we are.
Now we can.
Okay, so I'm just going to share with you the thanks everybody for participating in the registration questions. Yes, answers here. So let me get it on the screen. 1 second. There we are. So have you worked on a project where laser scanning was utilized on the job site to assist construction verification? 50-50. Bit of work there, good opportunities. Adam?
I was surprised it was quite high. I thought it was actually, I was quite very pleased when I saw 50-50. I don't know what Robert's view would be on that, but I thought that was quite good considering the battles that we've had over the last 10 years or so to try and bring it in. So I was pleasantly surprised. I don't know what my other colleagues are feeling.
Any thoughts, anyone?
I was quite disappointed actually. I think if you take the approach that it should be, it's about verification, but drive quality. That should be everyone's goal at this what we're trying to do. So
yeah, give you an opportunity to go and hunt a few things in a few different directions, perhaps. Okay, so the next.
Yeah, I think I'd echo Neil's point about quality assurance there. I think there's a bit of a misconception about the value of what can be achieved with scanning, and yeah, 50-50. I'm probably halfway. Obviously, I'm 50-50 between Neil's response and Adam's response, unfortunately.
It's hard to believe, but again, we don't know what capacity it was used in. But it's certainly not borne out by my experience that there are half the industry is using it as a technology, which is disappointing.
Yeah. Any other comments? Anybody before we move on to the next question? No. Okay. So who, in your opinion, question 2, should be responsible for validating that element having been installed as per the design? 11% said subcontractors. 42% said the main contractor, 39% said the project client, and 2% said function of handover. Thoughts on that, guys?
So this goes back to the conversation I was having in my part of the conversation around who should state or require this, and it's really interesting to see 39% of people have said project client mandating it. I do sit on that side of the fence. I do believe the client needs to start to set some expectations if we're going to look to standardise or at least manage expectations in terms of the level of transparency. Really important part there, the level of transparency, something that we may see, for example, verification happening during construction, but the client not having access to the reality of what's happening in the field. But that's really good to see. That's really good to see, and that sort of leans into what I'm thinking.
Sure.
My take on it is that it's quite an interesting question in terms of the answers and how they've been interpreted, because ultimately, if it's a function of handover, then it's when, in my mind, it's when the subcontractor is handing over to the main contractor for the work that was done at, say, installation, and it's the main contractor is handing over to the project client at various stages of various bits of information. So if I was looking at this question again, I'd probably say, well, you know what, it's a function of handover, and that's at multiple stages through the project with multiple parties engaged. And I wonder if these answers are reflecting on the current state of how the construction industry works.
Okay. All right.
There's a direction of travel though, because my experience has been originally people were interested in verification, primarily main contractors were interested in it because the client was taking a stick over quality of as-built information, whereas for me this feels like the numbers are in the right place. Yes, the main contractor is probably going to be the one that implements it, and yes, the project client should be the one that mandates it, and it's clearly specified in the contract.
Yeah, my experience of this is that the main contractor in his own contract with the subcontractor will add that in there, and it will also be something that's mandated by the client. So yeah, interesting percentages, but yeah, I'm with some of you guys. That's what I expected it to be honest. So the last question we've got, we have a number of other questions I've got here as well, which I want to get through. How important is it to have an accurate as-built model? As-built model information handed over on completion of a building project? Yeah, 81% essential, 19% good to have. Unfortunately, nobody said it's an unnecessary additional cost. Yeah, that's what we expect.
No, that was really reassuring to see that the recognition of the need for it was so strong. I don't know if we'd have posed the question 5 years ago, whether we'd got a different answer. I expect we may well have. So it's great to see that pressure for, the model and the 3D and when it's the digital twin push, all that, just helping raise the profile of needing to have this handover of the model as a key component.
I'm wondering whether technology has changed that somewhat, because in the old days it was all done manually, and I reckon there'd be some different views if we go back 10 or 15 years.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Any thoughts, guys, before I move on?
I think I just echo Adam's. It's reassuring to see that response.
Yeah.
Indeed, yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to go back to this. I've got some questions here, which I'm just going to read through. I want to reach out to a couple of people on the call. Emma Rees from Waits. Emma makes a statement that we're still seeing that almost all clients and users do not use the AIM of the handover. So as-built verification using laser scanning is an unnecessary additional cost on most projects, unfortunately, she says. Just a comment. And I've got another one here from Barry Gleeson at WSP. Barry says, how do we maintain the design intention and information against the as-built verification, which is often a surface capture or individual points and lines without design intelligence? Who wants that question?
I'll take that one, definitely.
Robert, over to you.
Because I get victimised by that one all the time. And I mean, obviously, I'm a third party who sometimes provides verification for main contractors, and usually the point at which I'm being asked to do something, there's been a big fallout. The reality is, in order to maintain the lines of contractual responsibility, subcontractor should be updating their own model. If I start updating it, then the subbie's going to say, well, you know, it's not my responsibility anymore. And I think that those lines of contractual responsibility, you know, verification can show you where something is wrong. It won't tell you that the design is wrong or right, and it certainly won't tell you whether enough air is going to go through an air conditioning system. Yeah. All it can do is tell you where something is wrong. It's about dimensional coordination at this stage, and certainly the bigger picture is something that the group is interested in talking about and looking at. But broadly speaking, at the moment, the technology as it exists today is about dimensional coordination and checking things are where they are expected to be.
Okay, thanks, Robert. I've got conscious of time now. I've got another question here from Linda Thompson. Thank you for your question, Linda. Given the option, I'd have had multiple choice for the question about validating elements having been installed per design. And Linda makes the comment, no harm in multiple checks. I agree with that. I've got another question come up on the screen. Has the era of red pen markup of as-built drawings now been replaced by laser scanning? Who wants that one? Adam, you're smiling. Is that your question?
No, give it to Neil. Give it to Neil.
Neil, come on in.
I think we're going to go back to where the client's team are really, and we've got to educate them in terms of what they can have and what's out there. But it's the adoption of the information at their end in terms of at the end of the project, how they actually move that information through their systems and utilize that. Because generically, we all traditionally sort of look at the 2D PDF as a sort of a reference point as what was done. But we now, you know, it's about how they can actually keep records within their systems to actually replicate that, i.e. bring the 3D model to life as a retrospective representation of the building they've just had built for themselves. So it's about taking them on a journey as much as anything, then to realise how they can use that information for other things as well. Looking at the, you know, we're looking at the digital twin, obviously, and looking at the building smart in terms of IoT sensors and stuff. So it leads into other things of benefits for them as well. So it is a huge journey here with this. So I think, yes, going back to the original question about as-builts, I think we've just got to make sure we keep on hitting a message home and look at the benefits to the client at the back end of it as well.
Okay, thanks, Neil.
Can I just add something, Stuart, on the redlining of drawings? So I'm assuming that question was suggesting that was on paper and with a real pen. And if so, yeah. So if so, I'd say no. The era of that isn't dead. It's been digitized. So it's not that scanning is necessarily replacing that procedure, but the way of communicating that information is going to improve and be more digital moving forward, so that you should see less of that done using paper. Just my additional thought on that.
Yeah, no, thank you, Andrew. So Anthony, thanks for the question. I hope that's answered it. I've got a few more questions here, which I'm going to skip through to number one. I'll take number one first. So this is a question for Adam, and hopefully Andy, you can jump in on this as well. Will CVI help with industry sustainability, productivity, digitization, and meeting net zero targets? Adam.
So I think it was an unusual question, something to think about. We wouldn't have thought about it before, but more recently I've realized that actually, because of the benefits that you get through building more accurately and more efficiently, it actually does have a significant impact on the carbon cost on a construction project. And I think the rework numbers are something like 20% of cost, and God only knows what the carbon impact on is. So though that may not have been a primary driver, I suppose, of what we were thinking about, it's become obvious through an engagement with the net zero people that actually that's a key part of how they're looking at bringing down the overall carbon utilization on a project, making it more sustainable by just getting rid of unnecessary activities. I think Andy's probably seen the same sort of thing from his side.
Yeah. I mean, the quick answer to that question is yes, it will help. There's a much longer answer to that, of course. But yeah, anything where there's better information going from site back to the office in a timely fashion should and will result in time savings, and therefore immediately there's improved efficiencies, which should therefore impact on sustainability of a project in terms of just your construction operations alone.
Yeah, and I mean, in very simple terms, if you build it right first time, then you're spending less embodied carbon. If you build it faster because you don't get delayed by building it in the wrong place and then something else not fitting, then you're reducing the time a project takes, the time that the project is on site, you're reducing the carbon. They're easy wins. I mean, we've also talked about whether there might be a cultural change. One of the things that identifying issues with verification can offer you is a choice. So, for example, it might have been in the bad old days that verification would just be used as a stick to beat a subcontractor. It's like you built it wrong, rip it out and do it again. Whereas actually, if your client's overriding approach is to maybe do a bit more design and alter a package, the design of a package that's coming on site later, so it can accommodate something that's been built wrongly, and there be some sort of financial settlement for that, then you may choose that direction because it's a lower carbon direction to go in, and verification opens up those opportunities.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. How do you see the relationship between construction verification and the digital twin concept? Neil, I'll come to you for that one if I can, and then I'll follow up with Robert after that.
It's imperative. We have with processes here now in place that we need to hand over as built models to the clients to actually then take into their operations and maintenance work streams and how they interact with that with IoT sensors. So there's a lot of exciting stuff in the industry. Certainly within our own business, there's some good news coming out next month, and it's key. This is key to actually understanding where all your built assets are in the accuracy they need to be, and obviously to understand as I said, to drive through the quality aspect of handing over to the client. He's paying for something that he should get in a quality format. Yeah. So it's really substantiating the drivers there to support, as a business, what you should be delivering, and making sure that you are doing this as business as usual. Sure.
Robert, you got a view on that?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is the obvious, and this is I'll qualify this by saying this is construction site digital twin, not post-construction digital twin, but the relationship between 4D planning and verification as a sort of feedback loop on what's actually been built and how accurately it's been built. I would say that that's a fairly easy win that you can do that embodies many of the Gemini principles. It's a you can argue it's not a hypey digital twin. It's a feedback loop. You've got data coming from the real world and feeding back into the construction progress or construction accuracy twin. Yeah, you could do that today.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. So the next question I've got here is, can I do construction verification without scan data? And Ben, can I bring you in on that one, please?
Yes, can. Can I do construction verification without scan data? So there's varying degrees of verification for me, and something we've been speaking to clients about recently, which it goes against the grain of some of the conversations we have in this group, but is how can we collect data from the field in a way that is leaner and perhaps doesn't necessarily need surveying expertise. So we've been trying to look at the use of reality capture, 360 photography, videos, photogrammetry, but actually recognizing that the value of each has a completely different core purpose. I've seen a client, I was speaking to a client recently, and this actually goes to this question quite well. We'd specified in the information requirements at the early stage that we wanted to see progressive verification, and we needed to see from the tier one and their supply chain a very clear process and technology that was going to be used to deliver that. The purpose was for change control, the purpose was for quality control, but it was also to support the as-built information for operations. We also identified during the early workshops of that client the opportunity to use reality capture, 360 photography for valuations, variations, reduced footfall on site, etc. And actually both got a seat at the table. But what happened is the tier one, when they came to price this, said, we're not going to look at verification because we've actually got the reality capture, we've got the 360 videos, and therefore we don't necessarily see the value or the investment in doing verification. It's too expensive. So I think long way around, I think that the answer is there is a potential to do a degree of verification without point clouds, but it's all about accuracy. And I think that if you recognize the value of each of these different tools and the different grades of accuracy they give, that's what's important. And that's what clients need to better be informed about and understand, as not to fall down this trap of, glossy, fancy platforming that perhaps doesn't necessarily meet the requirements they're trying to set.
Sure. Robert, you want to add any comment to that?
I think it's interesting. Obviously, in a sense, you could say I come from a more traditional route, if you can call laser scanning traditional. There are an increasing number of platform solutions around, but they are very, very expensive, and they require the same type of infrastructure that we've been talking about today that traditional surveyors put in. I think one of the things that we've not looked at is that if you approach this from a almost a sort of total information awareness attitude, which is the way that people intuitively come to construction verification, is going to sound very expensive, especially if you're laser scanning. If you're sending a spot mini walking around 10 stories of building every night scanning the works, you're going to create a fantastic quantity of data. Probably most of that work hasn't changed, and it's not binary like that. You don't need to do everything. In many instances, on most projects, there may be some areas of congestion that verification might be high value for, and other areas where, say the services are very open and it kind of doesn't matter if stuff's a little bit in the wrong place. So I think for my money, it's horses for courses, and I wouldn't rule out anything. Obviously, this is the construction industry, so we're always attracted back towards the horse and cart solution instead of the Rolls-Royce solution. That's why we spent so long trying to get BIM going in the industry, and digitalization going in the industry, because everybody just, you know, it's too expensive, not doing it. Yeah, but that's changing. I think you need to have a clear understanding of what you're trying to do with it and what the value is, and not treat it like, you know, shiny tech toys, because that never works. It'll be a pilot, you won't do it again.
Now, here's a question. I mean, I would have supported this, but let me ask the question first. And this is for Neil, if you don't mind, Neil. Are you seeing any uptake from the supply chain adoption of setting out? And if so, how can you support it?
I can go back quite a few many years ago, where we first started with setting out instruments and taking the supply chain on that journey. It's a hard one, and it's about driving that efficiency into them all the time. And the industry is changing so much in terms of the throughput of staff as well, in terms of turnover. It's making sure that you actually keep introducing that technology to the supply chain and encourage it. One thing you can do, you can actually, you can actually nominate sort of suggestive ways of working in their contracts, asking them to bring that sort of technology to make sure we drive and use the 3D model and the data, the geometry out of that to enhance the quality out on site. So it's driving those efficiencies into them and making sure they understand it and how they can actually better improve as a business. So to go back, it's slow, if I'm honest with you, but we keep pushing along, and when we find challenges, it means that if they are commercially challenged, they then will probably look at what we do as a process as being right.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, if I'd have been offered that, I would have taken it. But I would have, until I'd gained confidence, I'd want to check the checking that they were doing, if you will. That would have been very nice. Okay, so Andy, did you want to come in on that at all? Have you got anything to add to that one?
No, I was not onto that question. I was reflecting on Rob's response earlier, and I think the opportunity that Ben was hinting towards, and Rob was also commenting on, where this piece of it's expensive to do it all the time at a scan level. Thinking back to that graph I showed with the 3 colours, that linked to the project plan means that you can be a lot smarter about requesting scan-based verification at the right time, or just going with normal construction, or I say normal, lower accuracy construction progress tracking at any time. And I was just sort of reflecting on that, and was going to mention that there as a highlight, but no, nothing to add to Neil's question. Sorry if I get that.
All right, well, I'll just move on to one more question. I don't see any more on the screen. What is the best way to get in touch with the CBI? Ben, that's for you.
Yeah, we have a few mediums here. So we have a group on LinkedIn called the Construction Verification Initiative. So if you just head to LinkedIn and search for that, you can join our group, where you'll see all the people on the call today. You'll be able to get their contact details, add us directly or contact us. That's absolutely fine. All the email addresses that were put on the screen earlier by Adam, again, please get in touch and send us a note. We meet as a group on a monthly basis for half an hour. We have a very clear, quick, lean agenda, and we use Miro to help us capture our discussions and thoughts, and we have a really good sort of backlog of conversations. And then we meet quarterly, face to face, and we are trying to expand the group and grow. So anyone that has an interest in this space, please genuinely reach out. We'd love to get more people involved, and we really want to sort of grow on our objectives and make the change that we're so passionate about.
Okay, thank you, Ben. So I've got a few slides here to close out. And the usual thing is to thank the webinar sponsor. So that's Virgin Media O2 and Snugs. Thank you very much. Past recordings are available through the COMIT website, and there's the COMIT social media channels. And just to notify everybody on the call, thanks to the production team. So Jerry, Ian, thank you for the support for this. Thanks to all the presenters today. So Adam, Robert, Neil, Andrew, and Ben, thank you. Next happy hours, we've got the cost of accuracy, which is drones. If you've got your QR codes out, you can register that right now. That's on the 16th of November. And on the 23rd, we've got a BIM for Rail, interoperability and integration of intelligent infrastructure information. Just a bit of a mouthful, that one. I'd also like to say just to point out, we've got some sessions coming up next year. March, May, September, November, there was a community days and a COMIT conference. And for those that didn't attend, we had a fabulous community day on the 6th of October that was hosted by Nifty Lift and supported by Sunbelt. So I'll go around the room and ask left to right, parting comments. Adam, anything to be said?
No, I've really enjoyed it. I mean, it's great to have the opportunity to share the passion that we've got for this. I thought presentations were excellent and really enjoyed the questions at the end.
Robert?
Yeah, get verifying. You need to do it. You want to do it. And there's all sorts of extra benefits in having the infrastructure that you need when you do verification on site. You can actually set your building out properly from real points.
Fantastic. Ben, over to you.
Thank you. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody. I think final thought for me is we as a group struggled to define verification when we got together recently. So I want to just mention that this is a topic that still needs to be debated, discussed, agreed, and there's so much more to unpick.
Brilliant. Thank you. Andrew?
Come and join us.
Fabulous. Neil?
Yeah, I think I'll just welcome what Andy's just said there. Join in. It's a big change for the industry, this, and would welcome everybody on board.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, thanks, guys. I'll get the recording posted to the YouTube channel as soon as it's downloaded. And thanks again. Wish you all a nice weekend. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for hosting us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.